This film tells the story of a group of high school students working on a humanitarian project in Trinidad. While partying on a boat, a beautiful female student suddenly falls into the sea and is rescued by her classmate. However, the incident ends up leaving them stranded on a remote island. There, they have to survive for months and face a reality far different from their everyday lives. What happens next to these two teenagers? Let's follow the storyline of the film. The story begins with Emma, a disciplined and organized high school student. Emma is popular at school because of her beauty and intelligence. Meanwhile, there's Dean, her classmate who is quiet and keeps to himself. Because of his personality, Dean rarely has friends.
I've already done it. Okay,
That's a great student.
breathe, Em. Oh my dog, you're going to explode.
Whoa. Sorry.
One day, their homeroom teacher announces that they will be going to Trinidad for a humanitarian project, building a simple school while getting to know the local culture. Emma is not only popular, but also has very supportive parents who hope she will get into a top university.
Know what it's gonna be like to send.
So I'm thinking,
On the other hand, Dean lives only with his father. Their relationship is not very harmonious, and they often have disagreements. Sometime later, the school group arrives at a hotel in Trinidad. Before starting the work, the students are allowed to relax. The next day, the students begin helping renovate a school owned by local residents. That night, Emma's friend invites her to a party on a boat. Emma is pressured to come along.
And drag you to the boat.
That night, Emma and her friend go to the party on the boat. Suddenly, the police arrive to conduct an inspection, causing panic. In the chaos, Emma is accidentally pushed and falls into the sea. Dean, who sees the incident, immediately jumps in to save her. They get onto a rubber dinghy tied to the boat, hoping to follow it from behind. Unfortunately, the boat has no engine, so they drift away in the middle of the sea.
Be fine.
How are we gonna get out of here?
Damn it! No.
Because of the incident, their homeroom teacher cancels the project and decides to return to America. However, Emma's friend reports that Emma has not returned to the hotel and her phone is inactive. During roll call, it turns out Dean is also missing.
She never came really
Okay, well, how do you know that she's not?
on the boat.
Their homeroom teacher reports this to the police. At first, there is suspicion that Dean and Emma left together on purpose. But Emma's friend is not convinced because Emma is not the type to break the rules. Meanwhile, Dean and Emma wake up and realize their phones are completely dead with no signal. Emma panics because they are lost in the Caribbean Sea and don't know what to do. Unlike her, Dean stays calm and believes that help will arrive soon.
Still can't believe there's no motor. Why else have the dam floating in the middle of the Caribbean?
To make it any less screwed.
Emma then spots an island in the distance. She asks Dean to paddle toward it rather than keep floating in the sea. After they arrive, Dean finds a flare gun inside the boat. Elsewhere, Dean's and Emma's parents are called to the school. After hearing the news about their children going missing, they plan to head to Trinidad. Dean and Emma head into the forest, hoping to find their hotel on the island. Along the way, they see a small waterfall. Dean wants to take photos, but Emma urges him to keep moving.
You know how many people applying to...
We gotta find a hotel.
See, this is why I don't hang out with people.
After hours of walking, they reach the edge of the island but see no signs of life. They decide to head back to their starting point. Dean suggests spending the night in a cave, but the cave is filled with bats. When they return to the beach, their boat is gone, swept away by the waves. Dean only finds a life jacket. They give up and rest by the shore, since Emma is exhausted after walking all day.
You need at least 2 flares. You're supposed to fire 2 flares, one to get their attention.
After the sun sets, Dean manages to start a campfire. In that quiet moment, they talk. Dean mentions that Emma's life looks so perfect in his eyes. While they're talking, Emma checks her phone again, but it's the same, no signal at all. Since it's already dark, they end up sleeping on the sand. The next morning, Dean wakes up first and sees Emma busy writing a large SOS sign in the sand. Emma hopes it can be seen from the air by rescue teams. Emma then reminds Dean that they need to look for drinking water. However, Dean seems indifferent and instead chooses to swim at the beach. Meanwhile in Trinidad, Dean's and Emma's parents finally arrive. They listen to the latest updates from their children's homeroom teacher about the ongoing search. Dean's father is growing impatient. Since 2 days of searching by the authorities have produced no results, he plans to hire a private search team to find his son. Back on the island, Emma gathers her courage and enters the forest to look for a water source. However, in the silent forest, Emma feels like something, or someone, is watching her. In the days that follow, they work together to build a better shelter. In between activities, their conversations grow deeper. They talk about future plans, including where Emma wants to go to college.
I don't.
No.
The next day, Emma enlarges the SOS sign again. This time, Dean starts to really pay attention and slowly gets involved. Day after day passes, and without realizing it, they've survived on that remote island for more than 10 days. One morning, Dean tells Emma that their water bottle is missing. This makes Emma suspicious. Could someone have come near their camp during the night? On the other hand, news from home isn't very good. Emma's father decides to go back because he has to take care of Emma's younger sister, who has been alone at home for several days. Back with Emma and Dean, Emma feels extremely homesick. She still believes their parents won't stop searching. Unlike Emma, Dean tries to accept their situation. Dean thinks that maybe people out there have already assumed they're gone forever. Then, as Emma tries to start a fire, Dean's eyes catch something horrifying. A skull hidden near the bushes. When Emma sees it, she's immediately terrified, imagining the bad fate that might be waiting for them. Dean tries to calm her down. In that moment filled with fear and resignation, feelings of closeness grow between them. To keep warm and feel safe, they hug each other under the dark, silent island sky. The next morning, Emma wakes up in a panic. Dean isn't beside her. It turns out Dean is digging a small grave at the edge of the forest for the skull they found. Dean feels that the stranger deserves a proper resting place. As Dean cleans a small wound on Emma's hand, Emma begins to express her worries. She wonders how they can keep surviving if one of them gets sick or seriously injured on this remote island. Dean then explains the reason behind his desire to bury the skull. A few years ago, Dean and his mother were in a car accident. Dean had to stay in the hospital for several days, while his mother passed away. By the time Dean was discharged, his mother's funeral was already over. Dean never got the chance to say goodbye. Meanwhile, after being missing for 1 month, Dean's and Emma's story finally becomes national news. However, both of their parents refuse to give up. Dean's father tells Emma's mother that he will never stop searching. Dean is the only family he has left after his wife passed away. Since Emma's mother has long left the family to search for Emma, Dean's father tells her to go home for a while. When she arrives home, Emma's mother sees many balloons and flower arrangements put up by neighbors for Emma as prayers for her safe return. On the island, Emma's worries continue to grow. She wonders how long they can keep surviving. Dean tries to calm her, encouraging her to focus on getting through today and enjoying the small moments, rather than drowning in negative thoughts. At the end of the day, Emma says that Dean turns out to be a pleasant guy and very different from the quiet impression she had of him at school. Dean also admits that Emma is different too. Up until now, Dean has seen Emma as a super busy student whose schedule is always packed. Their conversation grows deeper. Curious, Emma asks about Dean's first love experience. Dean honestly admits that it happened with an upperclassman. Unexpectedly, that night they share warmth, and Emma enjoys her first experience with Dean. One afternoon, while Dean is in the forest, they hear the roar of an airplane. Dean immediately runs as fast as he can to the beach to signal for help. However, his hope is crushed. The flare gun they had stored turns out to be missing. Not only that, the water bottles Emma had collected are also gone from their bag. Emma becomes even more convinced that someone else is secretly watching them and taking their belongings. Without the flare gun, how can they get the rescuers' attention? Days after that incident, their mood turns gloomy. All they can do is reflect and give in to the situation. One day, Dean hears a loud roar from the forest that keeps disturbing them. Annoyed, Dean decides to investigate. As he goes deeper in, Dean is shocked to discover the source of the sound, a tiger living on the island. Terrified, Dean immediately runs to save himself. Being constantly chased, and in a desperate situation, Dean is forced to kill the animal to save his life. Since that incident, their lives fall into a new routine. They even build a more comfortable shelter inside the forest. On the other hand, their families begin to lose hope. The search, which has gone on for almost 3 months, yields no results. One day, they finally discover the real thief. A mischievous monkey is seen playing with their flare gun up in a tree. Emma comes up with an idea. They trade bananas for the flare gun. However, once the item is back in her hands, a frustrated Emma fires it into the air. Emma is tired of just waiting for a miracle.
We're gonna make the
Life is what's so good.
A few days later, that miracle arrives. They hear the sound of a helicopter. Quickly, they reload the flare gun and shoot it into the sky. The helicopter pilot finally sees the signal. After that, they are rescued and taken to the airport, where family members, friends, and reporters are already waiting. Once back home, Dean feels a longing for the time they spent together. He visits Emma, who happens to be preparing a welcome party. Emma invites Dean in, but somewhat hurriedly tells him to go home because her parents keep checking on her.
Nothing, just...
Are you gonna come?
The next day, Dean and his father attend the party. However, Emma seems different. She spends more time with her old friends and appears to distance herself from Dean, as if forgetting everything they went through together. When school starts again, Emma continues acting like a stranger, even though Dean really wants to talk to her. In fact, Emma wants to talk too. She even once called Dean, but unfortunately Dean didn't answer. One day, Emma's younger sister comes to talk about the school dance. Emma hasn't chosen a date yet, so her sister invites her to go together. The night of the school dance arrives. Emma comes with her sister. Since her sister already has a date, Emma's friend then accompanies Emma to look for someone to dance with. Coincidentally, they see Dean standing alone outside the building. Emma's friend, who knows there are feelings between them, encourages Emma to go and meet Dean.